I have one big major worry. I'll park that to the side for the moment. It's good to hear that boxing's continuing in some vein of form, I guess. And Frank Warren secured a deal, and it's not a complete shutdown, because you always worry with some of the landscape of boxing, with everything being in a bit of flux over in America. PBC lost their deal. They tried to find something with Amazon. You hear some rumors and whispers about Boxer and Sky Sports' interest. The same sort of thing happened when BT was taken over by TNT, and this might be the continuation of that. You wonder if this was a move of want or necessity. I'm sure we'll get the further details as they come out, but I guess we can hope it to be a good move, considering both Frank and Eddie have now piled up, and we've seen the move for them to join forces and put cards on, mostly by the prodding or the banging of heads together, as Johnny Nelson MB would say, from Turkey Al Sheikh. So in the short term thinking, I think off of the back of this news, you hope it's good news, but then you do worry, because what this does is it leaves one sole promoter on the traditional / cable or traditional way or means of watching TV for the large majority of this generation, I guess. I know a lot of people are moving over to apps and things, and that's going to happen over the years and such. But right now, boxing, it's a niche sport, and it's going to get even more niche because it's on DAZN and these type of apps. And DAZN hasn't had that. We've never had the release of figures. We've never had the release of, and if they were big, if the viewership was massive, you get that release because promoters would crow about that. That's how this game kind of works. And because they've always held that back, it kind of gives the feeling that, the subscribership in the UK isn't there. So you wonder about the health and state of boxing in that sense, and if crowds will still be there, if crowds still matter at all, really, and if it's just content is king here. So that leaves Boxer, the only broadcaster on Sky Sports, that traditional kind of way of watching, outside of course, the terrestrial TV channels, and then their status as well too, as to what will happen with them and if they continue, because like I mentioned, the whispers there that deal might not continue either. So I do worry as well, but I guess looking positively at it, it might mean that we get bigger fight nights because promoters now joining forces, I guess, on cards, on broadcasters, sorry.
Yeah, so I've just seen someone in the chat, the Keggy, saying Frank Warren and Queensberry have already unequivocally denied this. I don't think that's actually true.
Right.
So I've just looked at the Box Nation interview with Umar a little while ago. And while Frank says he's happy with TNT, he also says he will honour his contract. We know that contract runs out next year. So, yeah, no one was ever saying he was going to leave TNT early to join DAZN. He wouldn't be able to. That would be a breach. All that's been said is that he's close to securing a deal to move from TNT to DAZN next year. So it hasn't been unequivocally denied at all.
His reply is very similar to how Eddie Hearn fielded the question when he was potentially moving over to DAZN at Sky Sports. Very similar.
Yeah, it's definitely not an unequivocal denial, especially talking to Box Nation, which is a channel, of course, partly owned by Queensberry Promotions. I don't imagine, I'll have to watch the rest of it, but I don't imagine it was too, they went into too much depth or challenged him too much. Someone called Jilly Powell in the chat is just saying, shut up, which is, very helpful, Jilly. Thanks for watching.
On the podcast.
Boxing 24/7 says, agree with the risk of hiding boxing away further is reducing mainstream exposure. Also, will DAZN increase subs now Warren is on there? What happens when Frank and Eddie's shows clash? Are they under one show? I mean, I can't imagine there'd be clashes, would there, once they're under the same broadcaster, in the same way that when Eddie promotes in the US, if he's been on the same platform as he was previously with Golden Boy, for example, they would never put a show on the same night on the same platform. It just wouldn't work. I don't think you'll see, Frank Warren on DAZN Sport 1 and Eddie Hearn on DAZN Sport 2. Ra Hokum says, Frank Warren, like Bob Arum, has had his extraordinary longevity because of his ability to move with the times, in some cases ahead of the times. I'm guessing that's a kind of allusion to Frank Warren creating, I suppose, or helping to create Box Nation out of the rubble of his choice to leave the Sky deal, although you could say the writing was on the wall at the time. He left Sky for what was then a brand new service. He put his own money where his mouth is in Box Nation. And it kind of held its own. It outperformed its meager resources for the first few years it was around, and lasted a lot longer than most people expected, and obviously still exists in a different guise now. Jack Dutton says, Fury Usyk was on Sky, DAZN and TNT in the UK, so will it necessarily make that much difference to the big fights in the UK? I mean, that wasn't in the UK, Jack, is the first thing to say. It was obviously out in Saudi Arabia. And I think the very biggest fights may well, especially the Riyadh season ones, because Turkey Al Sheikh wants the biggest possible audiences. I think those sort of events will always be on as many different big broadcasters as possible. But I think in terms of boxing in the UK, there's pluses and minuses. I think in terms of making the fights between boxers from Queensberry and from Matchroom, I think it's a step forward. I think DAZN will be pushing more if they're both on the same platform to make those fights. I think Eddie and Frank have already got a close relationship. This will bring their interests into alignment as well. But I suppose the negative side is, the monopoly aspect. It could work to shut out fighters, who are affiliated with other promoters, including Ben Shalom and Sky, and some of the more growing companies like Wasserman Boxing or GBM Sports, for example. So there is that concern as well. DB Cooper says, this is bad for British boxing, which has been built on mass casual interest from ITV, Sky, TNT. A monopoly hidden away is not healthy. Also, DAZN is a ripoff. Thunder Road is saluting Ra and iBoxing Hub. Thanks, Thunder Road. But where's your demand for thumbs up, please, as you normally do? And then you can have a shout out also yourself, Thunder Road, if you do your usual job. Dennis Backtov says one less channel to stream. Yeah, I mean, I suppose I'm not advocating illegal streaming, but I suppose if you're a TNT subscriber and you're only that to watch the boxing that is only on TNT, so the Queensberry shows at the moment, I suppose you could cut costs and just have DAZN for both. There is that consumer element to it as well. Jack Dutton says, I meant UK broadcasting. Yeah, I get it, Jack. I get it. I just needed to clarify the point. That was all. Loyalty in the Last Day says, now Eddie and Frank are best bum chums. I mean, that's a dated reference, if anything. Does that mean we will finally see Joshua versus Tyson after they're both not contractual agreements? Yeah, because as we know, Tyson Fury has long been exclusive in the UK to TNT Sport, something that we saw change for the Usyk fight, as Jack Dutton alluded to earlier. So, yeah, I mean, I think it probably helps make Joshua Fury more likely, but I think that fight's likely to happen anyway. Ra Hokum says, Willkommen to Thunder Road. It's nice that you guys are getting on. Still don't see any asking for a thumbs up from either of you. So, take note. Bernard H says, just come on. What did I miss? Queensberry is joining DAZN for sure. No, it's not sure. No one's confirmed it from the Queensberry side. Apparently, the Times, Tom Kershaw reached out to both Queensberry and DAZN reps for comment and didn't receive any. Frank Warren has since done an interview with Box Nation, Umar, and said they are happy with TNT. Apologies for it, slip. And they will intend to honour their contracts. But nowhere in the original article from the Times did it suggest they were not going to honour their contract that runs until next year. The conjecture, the contention is that they will join DAZN alongside Eddie Hearn and whatever other promoters are on that platform at the time next year, 2025. DB Cooper 1 says, you're basically paying £15 to £20 a month, a PPV every month, for example, for next gen or average shows. Anything good is pay-per-view. These people had Sky, TNT for other sports, etc. DAZN has lost hardcores with price rises. Yeah, I mean, I remember when they did their first set of price rises, what was it, over a year ago now, and they removed initially they removed the ability to float in and float out on a month-by-month basis, and then it came back in, but it was more expensive than signing up for a year, which is good business sense, but not great for consumers who you want to expose to, say, a month of your product and a good month and hope they stay on as a result. I mean, you want that guaranteed revenue coming in on a regular basis. I do understand that, obviously. But yeah, I mean, the price rises haven't helped. The quality of the show's dipping after the majority of, high-level boxing or high-profile boxing moved to Saudi Arabia. Unless you're a fan of Misfits, and I know not everyone is, especially not everyone watching this show, it's difficult to justify the amount of money you currently spend on DAZN now. The flip side of that is if Frank Warren brings his stable over next year, maybe, and those prices stay the same and don't go up again, then you could maybe justify the expense, because you're getting, in theory, more shows, more regular shows as well. You won't have to wait too long between shows. You might be able to see more of the more well-matched shows as well, because you'll see more Warren fighting on Hearn shows and vice versa. So we'll have to wait and see if that's how it pans out. That's kind of a glass half full way of looking at the future.